gentlemen, give it up for the fabulous Danny Kaye! Who's that girl?
Danny Kaye. It's a name that took Daniel Koppel and his family weeks to come up with. But who is Danny Kaye? More importantly, who's Daniel Koppel?
From the day he was born, he was gorgeous.
It's the mother speaking. Sorry, Mom, Dad, but I didn't have like Danny Koppel. Just to me was like a librarian.
Good-looking guy, good voice, good songs.
He can sing. He can really sing, actually.
I still don't refer to myself as Danny Kaye. I very much see it as like Clark Kent and Superman. That's a terrible analogy.
They can have Danny Kaye, but Danny Koppel is mine. It's mine.
People kind of think like I had like a fairy tale life. A lot of people also don't realize, you know, how hard I've also been hit.
It's been said that Danny Kaye's father has had a lot to do with his son's success, but not in a way you might first have thought.
My dad is a huge Elvis fan, like to scary standards, you know, like one of those weird Elvis guys, you know.
You should have heard the knocked out jailbird sing that.
I kind of had the sense that Danny and Elvis died and Danny was born, you know. So I got this I rationalized this in my head. There was a school play. They couldn't find kids to be in the play, so they said, whatever you want to do in the play, you can do. So I said, I want to be Elvis Presley, you know. So, I mean, it was to my dad, this was like, you know, the best news he had ever heard. So he got me like a sequin jumpsuit. I mean, I was only probably that big. I don't know how they found one, you know. And I sort of had, you know, the hair. And I remember doing blue suede shoes. People loved it, and I think, you know, that was my first recognition that, just, you know, maybe I could do this.
Danny's early obsession with Elvis wasn't the only thing he picked up from his father.
My dad sold home electronic systems. And I grew up in a household where I listened to far more, you know, vinyl records than I did watch cartoons as a kid. I was quite insecure that I was doing something very different to my peers. I'd be playing rugby, and then in the afternoons I'd be going to like singing lessons, you know, and some of my mates were like, guys, it's like a little bit weird, you know.
Danny was the eldest of 3 children, and lucky for him, his brother and sister didn't share his love for the limelight.
I remember as a kid, you know, when my parents would have friends around and stuff like that, they would always want me to like perform. I was like the dancing monkey, you know, the performing monkey. So they're like, Danny, come sing us something. But for some reason, my brother and sister were never really interested in that. I was kind of all on my own.
By the time he was 16, Danny realized he needed to expand his audience beyond the living room and the school hall. So he asked his father if he could spend some time in a recording studio.
He'd heard there was this studio downtown in Joburg. And we were quite nervous at the time because we thought a little guy going down there on his own, but you know, we didn't interfere, and we said, okay.
I started writing songs, and my first batch of songs sucked ass. They were bad. They really were not very good.
Danny soon realized he needed a musical collaborator, and it wasn't long before he found just the person he was looking for at a recording studio.
I was about 16 years old, and I walked through the corridors, and I heard like this, you know, this music coming out of one of the studios, and I saw this very young guy, you know, sitting in front of a keyboard and a monitor, all on his own, you know, just making like a beat. And I introduced myself to him, and I said, hi, you know, my name's Danny.
He looked very young, skinny. He had a lot of confidence.
And I said, you know, I'm trying to find someone to work with, and, you know, is anyone here? And he said, well, what do you do? I said, well, I'm a singer.
And I was like, hell no. said, I gotta hear this. So I asked him, so which Stevie Wonder song do you like?
One of my favorite songs is Lately by Stevie Wonder.
So I wanted to see if he's got the deal. So I started playing Lately and he started singing. And from there I was like, okay, let's go. What do you want to do?
After that, we formed almost like a friendship, a production friendship. He'd come to my house on the weekends and he started teaching me the art of writing songs. He really just took me under his wing. And this was before our country was liberated. So it was kind of strange, you know, for this kid from the northern suburbs, this white kid, to have this, you know, black guy almost living with him on the weekends.
It looked very strange. Even when we drive together, we used to go and have lunch together. People look at us like, I mean, what's going on? You know what I'm saying? But for me, most of the guys like Marvin Gaye, like Donny Hathaway, there's always a Jewish producer behind them. But this time it was reversed. It was a black producer with a Jewish singer.
As it turned out, Danny and his family were so enamored with Danny's young producer, they asked Alexis if he would consider moving in with them.
The minute Alexis walked into the front door and into our lives, it was like, you know, another son of ours had returned home. You know, we took to him, he took to us.
When I walked in here, there was a red carpet on the floor, and you know, there was a plate, there was a bed, there was towels, everything, just everything just proper.
Alexis's parents were from a small mining town in the Free State, so what did they make of their 21-year-old son moving in with a new family?
So they were surprised. They were surprised because they didn't expect Joburg to be like that.
Alexis has been not only, he's been like a son too. He is our son. He's not like, he's our son. He's our older son. I can win awards and whatever, and I'll end up going back to my hotel room and like just crying.
Danny Kaye has always had a big supportive family. His mom Pam, his dad Gavin, his sister Jana, his brother Jarren, and oh yes, his brother from another mother, Alexis.
Through him, I really learnt everything I needed to know and how to write songs.
But despite the fact that Danny and Alexis were now living under the same roof, it was several years before they would reap the rewards of their efforts.
We'd write and write and write, and we were getting better and better and better, and we'd get rejected, and then we'd go back to the drawing board and write and get rejected and go back to the drawing board.
Danny's dad and moms, they've always been supportive. More especially Danny's dad, because sometimes he will drive with us there, and he could see this. We were like, we almost breaking out now. We're gonna cry now, and he'd be like, you know what? They don't know what they're missing. You guys, you're gonna be big. Don't worry.
But by the time he reached matric, Danny realised his dreams of becoming a chart-topping musician might come to naught.
Then I started thinking, you know, I don't know if I'm going to make it in the music business, so I actually better sit my ass down in a library and learn something.
So after he matriculated, Danny decided to study law and politics. When he finished his degree, he completed a PDM, otherwise known as a mini MBA. But all through his studies, Danny continued to work on his music, hoping that one day someone, somewhere, would bite.
I just got rejected for 4 years, basically, you know, year in, year out.
Soon after he finished his studies, Danny was offered a lucrative position at a private bank.
I thought, well, you know, I'm going to go work for the man. You know, I'm like going to be part of the system. And then as I was entering my final exams, a record company bit.
Chris Jalakis of Electromode Music received one of Danny and Alexis's demos in the post. He thought Danny sounded a lot like Craig David, so he called him up, and the rest, as they say, is history.
What impresses me are artists that are hungry for it or passionate about the business, not just talented people and like sit back and say, make me a star.
Soon after, Danny and Alexis began working on their first actual album.
Me, I was hyped. I was hyped too much because now it's like I'm doing it for real. You know, it was cool to actually see myself, you know, commanding somebody. Okay, push that level up, drop it, bring him here. You know, put this ones out. You know, it was an experience. And from that moment on, I said to myself, I know it's gonna happen.
But before their album could hit the shelves, Daniel Koppel needed a radio-friendly name.
Well, you know, my name, Danny K, we didn't come to it very easily. I remember Alexis, myself, my grandfather, my brother, my mother, all of us sitting around our kitchen table thinking, what the hell am I going to call myself? Because now I'd gotten this deal, you know? I was like, we had some weird names, man.
There was JD, JDK, DKJ, and then there was DJK.
Shellac was one. Double Face. You can't believe the names we came up with. We were like, weird names. Justice, there was their name, because my middle name's Justin. So we're like, Justice, Justin K. We couldn't work it out, and I was like, oh, it was like, you know, I mean, it's a big decision. You can't just like, you know, this is the name that people are going to know you by forever.
Finally, the family settled on Danny K. Danny's first big single was a track called Hurt So Bad.
Do you remember where you were the first time you heard yourself on radio?
I do. I remember I was not far from my house, driving down Grant Avenue in Norwood. The Nando's was on my left-hand side. There was a Brazilian coffee shop on my right-hand side. The DJ was Sammy Sabiti. It was about 12 o'clock. And I just heard the intro of it. It starts with this like guitar riff. Dun, 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 dun. And I thought, oh my God, that's my song. And I remember like, I didn't know if I should like listen, phone someone, tell someone, like I was like so, you know, I didn't know what to do.
His music hit #1 on chart shows across the country, but it wasn't until he started putting a face to the voice that Danny K became a star. And as the demands on Danny's time mounted, his young brother Jarren decided to take on the role of his manager.
Jarren was more like the youngest brother he's a pit bull for us. He was more like not only the manager, but a bodyguard, a muscle, our legal advisor. He could do all that stuff. You know, even when we go to concerts and stuff, you know, he'll come and check you. Are you okay? Did they give you everything you want? No, they didn't put it. Where's that guy? Where's that stage manager? Listen here, I need this thing fixed right now.
It wasn't long before Jarren brokered some big deals for Danny, including getting the gig as a support act for Usher's South African tour.
The Usher was my first real opportunity to play to like a stadium under my own name.
It didn't take long for Danny to land other high-profile gigs, including Nelson Mandela's 4-6-6-6-4 concert in Cape Town.
That was the first really gigantic concert that I did. Right before me, Beyonce and Bono had just done a duet. I remember like saying, okay, Danny, like it's some British dude, like it's you now. And I was walking onto stage and like Beyonce and Bono like walked past me and I took like Bono's microphone and I was like, kind of a hard act to follow, you know? It's like, holy smokes.
By 2003, Danny K was riding high. He had one chart-topping album under his belt, a string of successful live performances, and an ever-expanding fan base. But there was one thing that was missing.
My first memory of Leanne was when they were doing pre-advertising for the Miss South Africa that she was a part of. And I remember seeing her on the screen and being like mesmerized, like this was the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. And I remember going on, it's gonna sound freaky, I remember going on the internet, like Miss SA's, where I don't think I've ever told her this, like the missa.co.za, and thinking, what's this chick's name? Like Leanne Liebenberg, okay, how am I gonna meet her?
I was 17 and I just joined my agency and they were having castings for this guy called Danny K and his music video, and they never asked me to go audition, and I was like, yeah, whatever. And then my mom saw him on TV somewhere, and she's like, oh, this is Danny K guy, and he's so gorgeous. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And then I actually got invited to his first album launch. And I was like, yeah, whatever.
Then she had a boyfriend. I started dating Vanessa Carrera at the time. Vanessa and I didn't work out. We were still very good friends, and I was like, Vanessa, you gotta hook me up with Leanne.
The first time I saw him at Jamiroquai concert, and he was dating one of my friends. And then I went up to my friend and I said, introduce me to Danny. And she kicked him and Danny just went, hello, and looked away. And I was like, that was my moment. And it wasn't like it should have been, like in my dreams, it wasn't.
I remember meeting Leanne and I was like, geez, this is my moment. I got to speak to her. So I was like, hi, like try to be cool. What's up? I'm Danny. How you doing? What do you do? I'm a model. Oh, really? Like I'd known everything about her, like her heart's measurements. Then I took her number and she never answered her phone for 5 weeks. So she never took my calls. And I was like, what's wrong with this chick?
I didn't really want to date like a celebrity or whatever. So I wasn't interested. I thought, I'm just going to be one of these chicks that he chases, and I wasn't interested. And I kind of knew I could fall in love with him, and I was scared. So yeah, that's why I never took his calls, but eventually I did.
Danny asked Leanne to be his date at the 2003 People magazine Crystal Awards in Johannesburg, where he was nominated for Best South African Musician.
I was on top of the world. I mean, imagine, just won an award. I'm on a date with like this beautiful girl. Woke up the next morning, phoned my brother, was like just won, was with Leanne. He was like, awesome, that's amazing. And then in like the blink of an eye, my world just turned upside down.
Just 2 days after Danny's first date with Leanne, Danny's brother Jarren was killed in a helicopter accident just outside Johannesburg. Jarren was one of 6 passengers to lose his life in the crash.
It's been now 3 years and still every day is like an absolute nightmare. Waking up to that realization for me is like, it's just the worst feeling in the world. My highest highs in my life normally leave me in tears. Like I can win awards and whatever, and I'll end up going back to my hotel room and like just crying, and I'm like, he's not there to share it with me, and it's still very, very difficult, It's a black cloud that will hang over my life forever.
I actually met Gavin and Pam, Danny's parents, at Jan's funeral.
In 2003, Danny Kaye experienced some of the highest highs and lowest lows of his life. On the 7th of June, he took his dream date to the Crystal Awards, where he was named Best South African Musician. On the 8th of June, he lost his brother in a helicopter accident.
As a family, we were like shocked, man. We were shell-shocked, We actually didn't know what to do.
It's the one difficult thing with a death in the family is that, it's difficult to support each other because you're hardly able to keep yourself going. When he was going through a low, I just didn't have the energy to come to his rescue.
A whole world collapsed. And I actually met Gavin and Pam, Danny's parents, at Jan's funeral.
It's one of the great tragedies, for me, that she never got a chance to meet him. After I was kind of semi-back on my feet and was able to take her out and whatever, it is you have a few drinks and I'd land up crying, I was really a mess. And to her credit, she really stood by me.
Several months after his brother's death, Danny decided to channel his energy back into his music, and he asked his mother to take over Jarren's role as manager.
It was very shortly after that he was asked to open for Craig David. And now we didn't have Jarren, who was the person that really organised that type of thing. I was just thrown into this deep end, had no idea about any of this stuff. And it was almost it's either sink or swim.
Danny called his second album J23 in memory of his late brother, who was just 23 years old when he lost his life.
The first single of J23 was I Can't Imagine.
I can't imagine a life without you.
Whenever I heard that song, I would just cry. I could be driving and it's on radio, I cry. Whenever he sang it live, and there would be people in the audience that would cry because they were playing their own tapes of people they'd lost.
I think for us it was wonderful to see Danny get onto TV and talk or radio and tell the people, you know, why your album's called J23, because it, you know, it was lovely to keep talking about Jarren, and to let everybody know, you know, how much he meant to us, and, you know, how special he was.
His album, J23, was nominated for about 6 South African Music Awards. And I came down to the Psalmers, Leanne was with me, and I thought, I'm cruising in this year. These awards are all mine. And first award, lost. Second, lost. Third, lost. Fourth, lost. Fifth, lost. Sixth, lost. I didn't win one award that year. And it was, I wanted to win for Jarren, you know. I wanted to go up there and say, you know, this album's dedicated to my brother, and this is what it means to me, and this is what he means to me. And I was so passionate about making an acceptance speech and saying his name at that time, in, you know, in my life. And I didn't get given that opportunity that night, and I was devastated. Nikki, I was finished. I swear, I went back to my hotel room at the Cabanas, I remember, at the Cascade, sorry, in Sun City. And Leanne was with me, and I was like, I remember sitting in my room and like tears were welling up in my eyes, and I was thinking, I can't believe that we didn't win like one award. And this album was his album, you know. And I turned to the TV, and it had a digital clock on the TV, and the time was 23:23. And I looked at this and I thought, no, that's him like right here giving me a sign saying, you schmuck, like relax, you know, it's not, chill out, you know, it's okay, it's gonna be okay.
In early 2004, Danny and his family travelled to Chicago after Danny was invited to perform with the Soweto Gospel Choir on the Oprah Winfrey Show.
And I remember waiting backstage in the change room, and all of a sudden, like Stevie Wonder walked past. I was like, oh my Lord.
I was so happy, man. I emailed, you know, my friends in the States, there's producers who work with Mary J. Blige, they work with Asha. Like, that's my boy right there. Check him on Oprah.
I always knew from the beginning he'd make it because he's talented and he writes good songs and he's always up to date. You always see what happens in the world trends, and he keeps up to date with his music and his style.
If there has to be a South African artist who cracks it big overseas, it has to be Danny. He just grew and became like a force to be reckoned with in the industry.
Danny thinks like an international artist. International artists, they don't set boundaries. They see themselves doing music globally.
Danny Kaye may have realised most of his childhood dreams, but it seems these days his goals have very little to do with music.
I'd like to get married, I'd like to have kids. That's definitely for me is something, you know, that I desire very much. If I can carry on being relevant and successful in the world of music, that would be an amazing thing for me. If I got a smile on my face and I'm happy, that to me is what life's about. I'm devastated, quite frankly. You know, the amount of beauty products I use to try and look good, to be robbed by Hans Winkler and his natural beauty, quite frankly leaves me gutted and appalled. And Heinz, going down, baby.
And that's that for our first season of Behind the Name. If you missed any of the 10 episodes in the series, be sure to look out for the repeats in 2008.
Ooh.